When you're in your mid-20s, you really only have three options.
Get married,
Get a master's,
or run a marathon.
Hi, I'm Brian.
And I'm Francis,
And welcome to this week's episode of the Zone 2 podcast.
where we explore all there is to learn about the world of running.
Francis, are you familiar with the rule of doubling?
I am not. No, what is that?
So basically, if you start with the number 1, you double it, you get 2. You keep doubling it, you get 4, 8, 16, 32, 64. That might remind you of that game 2048.
Oh, yeah,
you
yeah,
played
yeah.
when you're in like middle school. If you take the number 1 and you double it 20 times, do you know what you get?
What?
You get 1,000,000.
That's a pretty big number. Only 20 times?
Only 20 times. That's not a whole lot.
But why are you telling me this?
So I'm actually telling everyone listening. So if you're listening and you're like, wow, okay, I don't completely hate listening to Francis and Brian talk. If you tell one person to listen to the podcast and then that person tells one person to listen to the podcast every week, let's say you tell one person and you're listening, in 20 weeks, theoretically, we should have 1 million people listening to the podcast.
That's actually a really good point. And then we'd be at 1 million by the end of the summer. Plus, that takes the responsibility of advertising off of us and puts it onto you, the listener. So some free labor. I love it.
Exactly. We want to work smarter, not harder.
And we want to work with you, not against you. I don't know why we would work against the listeners in the first place.
Francis is actively working against you trying to be a fast runner. It's not really enough to just tell people to listen to the podcast, though, is it, Francis?
No, because people could listen and then just ignore you.
Which is fine, honestly. If you're going to listen, hit play and then turn the volume all the way down and just put it in your pocket like I accidentally did yesterday. And then it'll help the listener stats, even if you're not listening.
I think I remember hearing something about Justin Bieber asking his fans to do that when he released a new single. He asked them to put their phones on silent and listen to it on repeat while they slept.
Interesting.
Yeah. So this is the Bieber method, is
The
what
Bieber
you're
method.
suggesting.
Is it? Am I plagiarizing the Bieber
I think
method?
you are. I think
Okay.
you are.
Anyway, tell your friends to listen to the podcast. You're already here. Also, make sure that you find us on Instagram at the Zone 2 Podcast. Also, if you're listening on Spotify, there's a little star thing after the episode. And if you hit the 5-star button, then it will increase our ranking among running podcasts. I think last I checked on Spotify, we were number 100 out of 104 running podcasts.
Hey, we beat 4 people. That's pretty good.
We did. But if you do the star thing, then we'll climb the rankings a little bit.
That's true. And if you're like us, it's all about your placing when it comes to racing.
Is that true?
Yeah, it's all about, if you're not first, you're last.
We're pretty mid-runners, Francis. I don't think
I know.
that's
I
true.
haven't come first in a race in a very, very long time.
Have you
Brian.
ever?
I think it was some charity 5K in high school, maybe. But yeah. But yeah, no. And it really does help. And if you have any suggestions or questions, if you want to hear about a specific topic on an episode, feel free to leave a comment. You can DM us on Instagram. You can comment on Spotify. Whatever you want, however you want to reach out to us, please let us know, because we are happy to kind of field topics to talk about, because we love running, we love talking about running, and we love teaching people about running. So, yeah.
Francis, we are properly rambling right now, aren't we?
We are rambling. We're rambling.
And you have a marathon coming up next
I
week,
have
don't you?
one marathon coming up next week.
That's-
Actually, less than a week from today.
That's crazy. I want to talk about our weeks of training. But first, we are going to do our first ever Zone 2 podcast race shout out. On Saturday, our friend and former guest, UP Win, ran the RBC Brooklyn Half Marathon with a PR of 1:35:49. So congrats, UP, on a PR. Another shout out to our friend Hayden Campos, who on Saturday ran the Chelsea 5K in a adult PR of 17:56.
It's pretty good.
That's really good. I think Francis had said earlier that we shouldn't count PRs that people set before they turned 18. Because
Yeah.
you're a different person.
Yeah, a little like when you're in high school and stuff, you're kind of you're a physiological freak.
It's true. And I mean, your metabolism is different. Your body geometry is different.
It's all different.
You're different. Are you even the same person?
No. I mean, that's like the Argo, right? That's a philosophical question. If every single cell in your body gets replaced, are you still the same person?
Oh, is that the thing with the ship?
Yeah, it's the ship. It's like,
yeah.
is it the same ship if you replace all the pieces?
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah.
And then the last shout out is our friend of the podcast, Russell Wells, on, was it Saturday or Sunday?
I think it was Saturday.
I think it was Saturday at
Battle
the Battle
Road,
Road
yeah.
track meet. He ran a 4:20.82 mile, which is pretty crazy.
Astonishingly fast. Good job, Russell.
Well done.
We were cheering for you
From a distance.
from a distance.
Where were we? Oh, we were at Jackson's for the barbecue.
Yeah.
So clearly we're
But we were talking about everyone running Battle Road.
but clearly we were prioritizing eating and drinking over supporting you.
Oh, I don't
in
know about
person.
you. I don't know about you, but I was not drinking because I
I-
have a marathon coming up.
You do. Okay.
Which actually that kind of segues nicely into our weekly recaps.
Yeah, Francis, tell me about your week.
Yeah, so like I said, and like Brian said, I've got a marathon on Sunday, so I'm kind of in the final stages of my taper. So it's really just sort of making sure that I'm healthy, making sure that I'm not injured for the marathon and that I'm in the best shape possible and feeling good. So keeping things pretty light. I did 8 miles on Monday, did a very light tempo workout on Tuesday with actually a bunch of former guests on the podcast. We had Aiden, Kate, and Rachel at the MIT track at like 6:30 in the morning, which was really nice.
I was bummed to miss that. I had clinical.
It was really good. It was really good. You'll hit the next one for sure.
I hope so.
And then I did 9 miles on Wednesday, took Thursday off, and then Friday I did a run at Tracksmith for the first time, my first ever bagel run, which was really nice. So I rode my bike over to Tracksmith, did about like 3 miles with them, had some coffee and bagels, and then rode my bike back.
Very nice.
Yeah, it was good. How was your week of training?
I had a good week. This was my first week since marathon, which was a month ago today. We're recording on Monday the 19th. This was my first week, I think, kind of picking it back up. I did just short of 30 miles this week, I think. I did 8 miles with Anthony on Tuesday and was absolutely fighting for my life. It was the hot dogs. I think it should be illegal in the city of Boston to put a lock on a porta potty. I don't know who is listening to this that has power to change this, but I am going to propose legislation. I will fight to the death.
Well, we are seeing Michelle Wu on Thursday.
We are seeing Michelle Wu on Thursday. Is that right?
Yeah, we're going to the Boston Marathon Finishers event, which we were invited to. We did not finish the Boston Marathon.
But we're going with a finisher of the Boston Marathon.
This is true.
That's true. Anyway, that was my Tuesday. Thursday, I did a little heartbreak adjacent run with Hayden and Devin, Eva and Renee. I did not really feel up for doing the workout, but ran with them. Friday, I did Cambridge Friday. And then Saturday, I went to Castle Island Track Club. They did a collab run with Lululemon, organized by our friend Nora Johnson. I had an absolute blast yapping with people and telling people about the podcast.
Nice. I feel like there's so many run clubs in Boston. Like, they just keep popping up, and I feel like I keep learning about new ones.
Yeah.
Do you know how how do they get to be? I've heard that like when a mommy run club and a daddy run club love each other very much. Like, I don't know, something about that. And then a new one comes up. But I what it takes to start a run club, I have no idea. But luckily this week we're joined by actually a founder of a run club, the founder of the Brighton Bangers Running Club, Seth Wolfman. Welcome to the pod, Seth.
Francis, Brian, thanks for having me. It's great to be here.
Thanks so much for coming on the pod, Seth. So as we do every week, I'm just wondering if you could give us a little bit of background about who you are, your background in running. Introduce yourself to the pod.
Sure, absolutely. I'm Seth Wolfman. I'm 44 and I live in Watertown. My background in running starts with soccer and indoor track in high school. All hurdles, a lot of sprinting, never raced anything over 400 meters. Followed that up with a extensive post-collegiate ultimate frisbee career, playing ultimate for over 20 seasons in 4 different cities that I lived in. So I was all ultimate frisbee all the time from age 22 to 27. And then around age 27, I just started running a little bit further. Ultimate's a lot of running, but started running on my own and ran on my own for quite a while, about 3 years until I started doing charity teams. Ran for charity 7 times, and that was fun. And I made some friends, but just like with the adult sports leagues, charity teams for running also are ephemeral. They only last for a short time and then they're over. You're there 3 months maybe, and then everybody goes their separate ways. Even in the most incredible team sports adult thing that I ever had socially, we all got along great. We all clicked. We hung out, not even just on game days, but we hung out after that. We hung out in between games. We hung out for a couple months after the season. But even so, by 3 months after that season was over, we never saw each other again. So I started to think to myself, it'd be nice if I had something more permanent that I could keep going back to, and that was always there. And I wasn't the only one thinking that way. The Brighton Bangers started by several of us running together a charity team for the second year in a row, and we just decided, hey, you want to keep running together? Sure. All right, let's go to Oak Square 7 o'clock on Wednesday night. and that was in April 2012, and we're still going. So, yeah, as far as myself goes, I've been doing that for the last 13 years, running with Brighton Bangers and a bunch of other clubs, and really extending my running career from nothing all the way up through some long distance running now.
Seth, that's really awesome. I 100% agree about that experience with like adult league sports kind of ebbing and flowing with the seasons. And what's so cool about running, like you said, is it is constant. Doesn't matter what month it is, doesn't matter what time of year it is at all. There's always something going on. There's always running to be had, whether you're indoors, outdoors. So it's cool that you kind of saw that space and wanted to get a group of people together that, regardless of the weather here in Boston, run year round. That's awesome.
Absolutely. And the social connections that you make with something that's permanent and is there every single week obviously get much deeper than the sports team that exists for a couple months and then ends.
You mentioned starting the Brighton Bangers as just sort of a charity team that you ran with multiple times. How many people started off in the initial stage of the Brighton Bangers, and how many people are you up to right now in terms of the number of people who actually run and are involved with the club?
Sure. I'd say for the first few months back in April 2012, it was 12 to 15 people. There was 7 or 8 of us from that charity team and 7 or 8 friends that we invited. That was probably everyone at the first run and at the first runs for several months. We just started telling people what we were doing, and people kept coming. And now we have more formal ways of getting people to come, like Instagram, and our SEO is completely dialed in. Everyone finds Brighton Bangers when they look for a running club in the Brighton area. And so people keep finding us, which is great. We don't have bona fide membership, this idea of knowing exactly how many people we have, because we don't charge dues is probably the biggest reason. So it's hard to define exactly how many people we have, but at every Wednesday night run at 7 p.m. in Oak Square, we have 80 to 100 people year round now. It's not even seasonal anymore. For the first several years, we would have big groups in the spring and summer, and then smaller groups as it started to get cold. Now, we've done a good job, and the club is so essential to so many people socially that they are going to keep coming all year round. Like, they're not going to miss it. So the last few years, I've really, since the pandemic ended, I've noticed that the groups aren't ebbing down at all in the winter, which is fantastic to see. We're still doing, like I said, about 80 to 100 people on Wednesday nights, and also big groups on Saturday mornings at 9 o'clock as well.
Yeah, I know. I've been running with the Bangers, and that's actually how I know Seth. And I remember I was going out for a run at 7 o'clock on Wednesday, and I looked at my watch and I said, well, I remember Googling running clubs in Boston and hearing about the Brighton Bangers that way. And I know that they run at 7 p.m. in Oak Square. So I showed up, and there was about, like Seth said, 80 to 100 people. And I was like, oh, these people seem pretty nice. And I got to know a bunch of people through the Brighton Bangers that I still am in contact with, and I still run with them pretty regularly. And it's interesting too, like he said, in the wintertime, it's still 80 to 100 people all dressed in full winter gear with reflective vests and headlamps and everything. And to see everyone running around the Chestnut Hill Reservoir with their lights and everything is really cool. And it's really cool that people are able to do that.
There's an interesting challenge that the Brighton Bangers have as a club when it comes to numbers, since we're talking about numbers of people at the club, is turnover. It's a neighborhood-based group in Brighton, Massachusetts. One thing about Brighton is that it's a high rental area. It's a mostly young area. It's a lot of 20s and early mid-30s people. Very few people who live in Brighton can afford to buy in Brighton, and there's not much to buy anyway. It's a lot of rental properties. So what you get is a lot of people coming into town and starting off their life in Boston, their post-collegiate life in Boston, in Brighton, and then in a lot of cases leaving. So let's say there's 250 active members right now or at any given time. At any given time, I'd say about 2/3 of the people in the group, so over 150 of those, are at year 0 to 3 in the club. And we have a lot of people in the club who've been there a long time. I'm not the only person who's been hanging around a long time. We have plenty of people who have been there 3 to 13 years. But this idea that you have a running club that's always 2/3 to 3/4 year 0 to 3 is unusual. When you compare that especially to suburban running clubs don't get that many new people, but also everybody's there for life. They own their property, they're not going anywhere, and people are there for a long time. Even in other clubs I've seen where the crowd is just a little bit older, a little bit more established, like you look at even Somerville Roadrunners, or there's more people who are going to live there for a long time and are going to be lifelong members. So something we have to deal with is constantly bringing in new people, making sure that new people find it and find it welcoming and stay. So we work really hard to create a welcoming environment for all runners and all people, even from all backgrounds, because lots of different people come through. We have thousands and thousands of people come through over 13 years, but even in a given year, there'll be hundreds of new people, whereas especially a suburban running club will not see 100 new people over several years. So that's a big challenge that we face, and we do a lot to make sure that people are coming and feeling welcome and staying as long as they can.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's definitely something I have noticed at the run clubs that I've attended so far in the Boston area is the importance, I think, of that environment being welcoming to new runners, especially when I started, like when Heartbreak a year ago. Being welcome, I feel like, was a very important part of my early experiences there. And that's kind of what got me in the position where I was like, okay, I feel comfortable coming back. It is interesting, though, hearing you talk about the challenge of turnover in an area that has high rental properties. And you talk about having to kind of work hard to constantly be attracting new people. So I'm curious if you could expand a little more and tell us a little bit about what it is you do in order to attract those new runners, whether that's through social media campaigns or running public events or partnerships with other local organizations. How do you get the word out?
Sure. To get people to come to their first run and then to get people to come to their second through 10th run are two completely different challenges. So the way to get people to come to the first run is a little less interesting, I think. It's kind of the standard marketing you might expect me to say. There's make sure your social media presence is active. So when people find you on Instagram or Facebook, it looks like there's people there and things are happening. We even just started a Discord this year, and a lot of people join. People love talking there. That's great. So we're active in those areas. Make sure your search engine optimization is there. People are finding you on the website. And even just make sure you have gear so that when you're at races or other events, people are wearing it and other people in town see that. You do get a lot of people that way as well. And make sure you have at least a couple weekly runs so that people who live in the neighborhood just see you going by. That's another great recruiting tool. The big group just runs all over Brighton every Wednesday, and other people in Brighton just see that and say, oh, I could join that. That's for run number 1. Runs 2 through 10 or 2 through whatever are a different challenge. And that's because this is where you have to create a meaningful experience in a welcoming environment. So the way we do that is by having 4 core pillars of what we're trying to do to create a great running club experience. And that's being a welcoming environment to all runners where we can improve our health and fitness, have fun and be social, and give back to our community. If your running club is doing all of those things and focusing on really hitting all of them, then you will create what I believe is the complete running club experience, and people will want to keep coming back. Once someone gets through about 3 months, if they're really solid, then they're kind of in what I would consider phase 3, which is they are embedded and they're going to come back for 2 reasons at that point. One is especially the social piece. If they're getting what they need socially, whether that's a little or a lot, if they're finding in your group, then they're going to stay. And we have people who come to the Bangers needing all levels of social interaction when they come to our club. A lot of people are new to Brighton, new to Boston. Maybe they just took their first job out of college, or they're just moving from some other city. And this club could become absolutely essential to them socially. It's where they're going to make the majority of their friends, and it's going to be extremely important. Some people just need a little. They already have friends, they've been living here a while, or they just need a few activity partners, just running buddies, whatever it is, and they can get that too. The other reason people will stay in your club at that point, 3 months or longer, is if they own even a small piece of the club. If they are organizing or running something to do with the group, whether it was their idea or not. So a couple of ways to foster this are: 1, create leadership opportunities that people can take easily. So for running club leadership, my philosophy with that is that you can lead stuff and take the lead and do it. That's level 1. But the next tier is that you create leadership opportunities for other people to take. That is so important, because when other people start grabbing little bits of the club, they'll feel so invested, and they really feel like a full-on member. So that's really important to give people. And the other thing is just say yes. When people have ideas, say yes. And if you don't think it's a good idea, find a way to say yes. Make it work, because they will be so invested in that thing, they'll never leave. They'll stay for as long as they possibly can. And like I said, these ideas are really important at a club where you're set up to have high turnover. Most people aren't going to live in the area forever, and there's lots of other options for run clubs in Boston. As we all know, you've had some of the founders of other clubs on your pod, so there are other options. And you want to make sure that people feel invested if they're going to stay in your group. So say yes to their ideas when they have them and give them chances to own something.
Can I pitch you a bad idea?
Sure.
Okay, picture this. A Harry Potter themed, Quidditch related, unsanctioned road race where I still haven't fleshed out the details, but someone dresses up as a golden snitch, and I don't know yet, but you have to like catch them or something and you get points.
I'm still waiting for the bad part.
Oh, okay. So we're on the same page. No, this is good. Okay, we'll talk after this. We'll make it happen. I know the Bangers would be definitely interested in this idea.
So, Seth, I was going to ask you a little bit about things from the leadership standpoint. From 100 people showing up to multiple group runs every week, the social media presence, the laying the groundwork, and this inclusive environment, it does sound like a full-time job. So I was going to ask you a little bit more about how you divide responsibilities and how you share, integrate leadership from others. But it sounds like you kind of hit the nail right on the head and look for opportunities for people to become more invested in the club and kind of become a part of that ownership and help take charge. That's really cool.
Yeah, absolutely. There's different ways to organize a group, certainly. And for us, we don't have formal governance. We don't have elected officers. And there are different teams that you can volunteer with in our club, such as we have a Grand Prix, we have a banquet at the end of every year, we have the volunteer opportunities that we do in the community, there's the merch, there's getting new members to come. These are all different teams that we have that people can join. But how you join is a little bit more informal than it might be at some other places that have just a more formal leadership structure. It works for us. Like I said, we also don't have membership dues. Anyone can just come. And that does lend itself to helping with the idea of welcoming to all runners. At least there's no money component to coming to the Bangers. You just come and you're in. So that's helpful. But yeah, for that leadership piece, yeah, I'd say that you just want to keep people involved as best you can.
So, Seth, guests that we've had on previously, we've talked about how run clubs are scheduled. Sometimes different run clubs have a day where that day of the week is that run club's day. And I know a lot of people, myself included, will run different days of the week with different clubs, depending on which friends I want to go see, what's going on in my life, what my schedule looks like that week. I'm curious what the weekly cadence with Brighton Bangers looks like, what days you have, if you have any events outside of a regular cadence. How does scheduling work for you guys?
Sure. The regular cadence is 2 runs a week, Wednesday nights at 7 p.m. from Oak Square, and Saturday mornings at 9 a.m., also from Oak Square. So that's the weekly cadence. We also have lots of other events all the time, social stuff and running stuff. We do about one race a month as a group. So we always bring a big group to whatever race that is. We know which ones are fun, which ones are easiest to get to or just most fun to be at, especially for a big group. So we tend to do those. We also have lots of social events. We have at least one a month, which is called Fun Friday. You just pick something to do on Friday and everybody goes out. And there's also plenty of other just parties and other things that happen, not quite official, but everyone's invited. Those kinds of things happen all the time. So yeah, that's the cadence for us. I know some groups go more often or less often, but it's worked for us for 13 years. And yeah, it's a good cadence to have. Wednesday is kind of like, I'd say, the main event as far as running goes. Plenty of people go on Saturdays, but the biggest groups go on Wednesday nights for us.
Very cool. And if people listening are trying to get a little bit more information, is there somewhere we can direct them to learn a little bit more about what's going on? Do you have a website, social media?
Absolutely. BrightonBangers.com for the website. Instagram.com/BrightonBangers is our Instagram. And we also have a Discord. I'm not sure how you find a Discord. I think you have to get invited. But come to a run and then you'll get invited and you'll be on the Discord.
There you go. And if you're listening, we'll also be linking all this in the show notes and on our Instagram as well for you to check out.
Also a Facebook group and a Facebook page. Needless to say, we have those. But the hot stuff right now seems to be Instagram and Discord.
You also touched on something I want to address, the idea of the Grand Prix. So a lot of clubs are just a way for people to meet up and train with one another and go on runs together. But the Brighton Bangers has an element of competition in it with the Grand Prix. Can you explain a little bit about what the Grand Prix is and how it works?
Sure. It's friendly competition, but it is a series of races throughout the year that we do, about one a month. and a point system to track our progress. And you can actually count any race you do towards the Grand Prix and get points. The Grand Prix scoring formula is really built to foster and reward three things. By far the most important is participation in the team races that we do. So we put out this calendar of about one race a month, and doing those races will get you the most points. The second most important thing is self-improvement as measured by personal records, distance, or personal long, running your longest race. So it's self-improvement. And that all goes back to the two things I mentioned with the core running experience, right? Doing the team races is part of having fun and being social. We bring big groups to the team races. And improving your health and fitness goes back to personal longs and personal records, right? So it all kind of goes together. The third aspect of the Grand Prix, which is much less important, is speed relative to your gender age division. So within your, F20 to 29, M30 to 34, whatever the race publishes as divisions for that race, if you score a high percentage in your own division, you get a couple extra points. But really the most important things are getting out to the team races, improving yourself, and also versatility. You can't win the Grand Prix by spamming 25Ks in a year. You also can't win the Grand Prix by spamming 4 marathons in a year. There are rules in place to govern that. So you have to show, you do have to run a lot of races, but you have to show versatility across different distances. You can't just sign up for every 5K under the sun or just automatically win because I ran 4 marathons and you didn't. All right, so yeah.
That is such a cool idea. And it's really awesome because that is a really great motivator, I feel like, for members to stay consistent when it comes to races. I feel like it's very easy to be like, I'm going to run a marathon this year and sign up for your one marathon. And you run it by April and then be like, all right, I'm going to chill for the rest of the year. But kind of having that cadence of like, oh, I need to keep striving to not necessarily like be the fastest person ever, but keep improving myself and have those like metrics and those milestones where you're like, okay, like what's next for me? What can I do within this year? That's like a very healthy balance of competition where you have the right amount of competition that is going to push you to be better, but not so much competition that you're just going to feel terrible about yourself for being slow.
Right, exactly. And the way the formula is set up, I won't get into the nuts and bolts of it. It could be boring. Maybe we could post a link where people can go read the guidelines. That's fine. But I will say that, again, speed is de-emphasized. There's a little bit, it is a foot race. You should get a couple of points for being faster, but it's very de-emphasized. And a lot of the winners that we've had of our Grand Prix and a lot of people we've had in the top 5 are not the fastest people in the club. They're just the people who, again, get to the team races consistently and consistently improve themselves throughout the year, even if they don't end up as anywhere near the fastest.
And you also get your name on a giant trophy. Is that correct?
That is correct. At the end of every year, we have a banquet, and we give away trophies to the top 10 finishers in the Grand Prix for that year. You get an individual trophy that's sized up depending on where you finished. And we do have a permanent Grand Prix cup that you can have your name etched in history on that. And that cup lives at the Last Drop Bar in Brighton, where we go after every run.
That's very cool. So we're talking about racing and we're talking about competition. And I do want to talk about your experience racing, specifically racing the Boston Marathon. You've run Boston 5 times. And for a lot of people who have listened to the podcast, we've had both people who have qualified for Boston and people who have run for charity for Boston. You haven't qualified for Boston, which would lead people to believe that you were a charity bib all 5 years, but you've only ever done one charity bib race. So how did you game this system to get the other 4?
I'm here to declare myself the official king of invitational Boston Marathon entries. I'm not sure anyone else has done it more than me. So yes, I've run the Boston 5 times, no qualifying, and once for charity. 2012, I ran for Jumpstart for Young Children with a fundraising minimum of $4,000, which was a lot at the time, but it is light work compared to today's $10,000 to $15,000 minimums. So I raised $4,000 in 2012. Since then, found a lot of different ways to get in. 2014, hardest year to get in ever. Year after the bombing, everybody wanted to run 2014. I got into the Boston Marathon in 2014 twice. Nobody else can say that. The hardest one ever to get into. I was in 2 lotteries. One with the Greater Framingham Running Club, which I was in at the time. They get 10 numbers a year for volunteering every year at the Boston Marathon. And the town of Framingham didn't have a charity program yet, but all the towns on the route get 25 numbers. And at the time, Framingham was just having a lottery to give away their numbers. So I hit both of those lotteries, Greater Framingham Running Club and town of Framingham. And that lottery was only for people who live in Framingham or work for the town. I hit both of those. I got in twice. I gave one back, but I ran 2014. 2016, a Newton police officer was in the Brighton Bangers. I'm friends with them. And he just came up and said, hey, you want a number? I got a few extra from the cops. And I was like, sure. And he said, great. Can you raise some money for the Newton Police Memorial Association? And I said, sure, I could do that. But I had no minimum at all. Just very casual, no pressure. I don't even consider it that I ran for charity. I did raise a few $1,000s, but with no minimum, it was just whatever. And then it gets better. 2017, the infamous weed bib. So I was the manager for Team Brookline, which is Brookline's charity team for a few different organizations in Brookline. I wasn't supposed to run. I didn't have a number. Part of my job was to go door to door in Brookline and just fundraise, asking stores for donations to Team Brookline. Most of the stores gave me $50 or so, a lot of mom and pop shops in Brookline. But in 2017, there was one store in Brookline that had a line out the door all day, every day, and the average customer spend, I have to imagine, was at least $150. You could go into this store on a Tuesday morning at 10:30 a.m. and people were lined up down the street ready to drop $150 to $500 each. So I'm like, this place is printing money. I'm going to go in there and see if they'll give me a donation. This store was, of course, New England Treatment Access, medical marijuana dispensary, which at the time was one of only 2 medical marijuana dispensaries in the entire state of Massachusetts, and the other one was in Northampton. So the very, very popular store. So I go in, I said, hey, you want to donate to Team Brookline? The guy says, sure, here's $5,000. I said, great, thank you very much. That's amazing. And then, this is 4 weeks before the marathon. He said, hey, by the way, you said you had your med card, right? And I said, yes, I do. I have my med card. And he goes, well, I have an extra invitational entry to the Boston Marathon. I've been meaning to give it to a patient, and I just kind of forgot I had it. You want it? And I said, sure, I'll take it. So on 4 weeks' notice, I ran the Boston Marathon completely for free with a number that I got from a medical marijuana dispensary.
So just to clarify, Seth, you walked into a medical marijuana dispensary and walked out with $5,000 and a Boston Marathon bib.
I've worked in outside sales for a long time. It was the greatest sales call of my entire career.
You have to write a book or something. That's crazy. Wow. That's unbelievable.
I feel like I've met some people who would give their left arm for a Boston Marathon bib. And here you just got one for free from going to from a dispensary.
Mm-hmm. It was a good thing I was a patient. If I didn't smoke pot, I never would have gotten into the Boston Marathon.
You hear that, kids? Do drugs.
Smoking is good for you, apparently.
Last one, this year, 2025. In February, I was listening to sports radio, and they ran this 10-second ad, a very quick ad, and it said, hey, enter our contest to win a Boston Marathon entry. It's an essay contest. The prompt is, in 250 words or less, tell us why you run. And I said, well, I could do that. Now, I hadn't been planning on running. It's February. The race is in like 9 weeks. But I said, well, I could enter that. So it was a 250-word limit. I wrote 122 words in 2 minutes. That's half a tweet. That's nothing.
Oh, my God.
And it was all stuff I've said before. I just sent it in. They called me on March 1st, 7 weeks before the Boston Marathon, and said, hey, you won our contest. You run the Boston Marathon. Now, the last couple of years, I've not been running nearly as much as I used to. I was nowhere near marathon shape. I hadn't run 10 miles at once in a couple of years. I hadn't run a half marathon in 5 years, and I hadn't run a marathon in 8 years. And on 7 weeks' notice, I got out there and trained my butt off for 7 weeks and managed to finish the Boston Marathon feeling good. I could not believe it. It went great. Everything went according to plan. 5.5 hours was the goal. That's nowhere near PR or anything, but that was the plan. It's exactly what happened. I felt good. I said hi to all 100 people I knew on the course. I had a great day. I couldn't believe how well it went.
I think that's got to be a record.
Yeah, I'm blown away, Seth. I don't know how we got to do it, but you got to figure out a way to get Francis and I in Boston next year.
Yep. We're trying to woo Michelle Wu on Thursday. No pun intended.
He planned that days in advance.
No, I swear that was off the cuff, Brian. That is true improv right there. No, so maybe we could do some schmoozing, but it sounds like you've got the hookup, Seth. So we'll be hitting you up next year for sure.
I don't know what shenanigans I'll be able to come up with next to get in again. So every time I figure it's my last Boston Marathon. But yeah, these are fun stories. I wish they were repeatable. They're definitely not repeatable. But I guess the moral of the story is there are numbers out there that aren't qualifying, and charity. And you have to keep your ear to the ground and listen. Other people I know who have done this have gotten numbers from police organizations, municipal organizations, hospitals along the route, especially in the towns along the route. That's where the numbers seem to end up. In fact, each town gets 25 numbers. And I think they all, I can't speak for every town, but I know most of them at least have buttoned up charity programs at this point where you just have to apply and you're basically running for charity. But it wasn't always like that. Like I said, when I got one just through a lottery for Framingham. So pay attention to the municipal organizations in the towns along the route and see what you can come up with.
I was super interested after Boston this year. I did a little bit of reading about how many bibs there were and then how many entrants there were and then how many people actually ran the race. And I was surprised to see that there's a little bit of a gap there. You would expect there to not be a gap, especially just considering how competitive it is to run Boston. So I was surprised to hear that there were bibs available that were not used. So
I wonder if the BAA would consider like a program where on the day of the marathon, you just show up and if you're lucky that they just like give you a bib.
yeah, but then you're training for 20 weeks. Like, oh, I really hope that they say yes.
And then if you don't get into Boston, you could do some other marathon.
It's true.
There's too many marathons happening.
I know. If anyone at the BAA is listening, that's not a bad idea. A day of bib.
While we're doing some ideas for the Boston Marathon, I could give you a couple more.
Let's hear it.
Please.
One is that wave 4 needs to be seeded. So the way the Boston Marathon works is 4 waves. Waves 1 through 3 are all qualifiers, and you're seated within your wave and your corral within that wave by your qualifying time. So for everyone in wave 1 through 3, you're starting with runners who are exactly at your pace. Wave 4 is a mess. There are people in wave 4 trying to run under 3 hours. There are people in wave 4 trying to run 6 hours, and everything in between, because it's all invitational entries, charity runners and people like me who just have other hookups where they got in. And there's no rhyme or reason to how they start the marathon. And think about it, wave 3 probably has about 8,000 people in it. So this is still an 8,000 person marathon just on its own with absolutely no rhyme or reason to who is starting where. The way you get your corral for wave 4 is they just do it in order of when they received the invitational entry, got mailed in. So there's people all throughout all 8 corrals in wave 4 of all abilities. And those little streets of Route 135 and Hopkinton, Ashland is nowhere near wide enough to support people who are that fast. So I've run out of wave 4 trying to break 4 hours. And it is very, very difficult. Not just because of the course itself, but because you cannot get around that many people on that road. You're passing people the entire time. And even if you manage to get all the way through wave 4, even if you start in corral 1 and your toe is on the line, the start line, as the gun goes off for wave 4, if you're trying to break 4 hours, guess what happens to you by mile 3? You start catching up to wave 3 because the people at the back of wave 3 are men 50 and over and women 40 and over who qualified with times over 4 hours. And you just start catching up with them, and it's the same problem. You're just surrounded by runners who are slower than you, and you can't get around them. So my request, the BAA, is find a way to seed wave 4 by speed so that everyone in wave 4 has a chance to run with people at their own pace.
Yeah, we'll run that by Michelle on Thursday as well.
Yeah. We'll pick her brain.
Actually, Brian, I've got a question for you. Would you, if you were running Boston and you were in wave 4,
Okay.
would you trip an old lady to get around her? Okay, good. That was a test. You passed.
Did you think there was any chance I was going to say yes to that?
There was a part of me that thought you would say yes. Yeah.
Oh,
For the glory of Boston, you would do it. But
no, because the glory's already there if you're running it.
I guess that's true. Okay, good. You passed. You have a moral compass.
If we're talking about finishing in the under 6 hour course limit and she's in the way, then that's a different question.
I guess that's fair. Yeah. If it's between her and your race not counting, she's going down. Gently, though.
Sorry, Grandma.
So I wanted to talk a little bit more about your other marathons that you run and the other races you run in general. So I know you, in your guest questionnaire, you listed a bunch of races that you've done in the past. Do you have any that stand out to you as being particularly exceptional?
Absolutely. I think the most exceptional marathon in America, not that I've run them all or anybody has, but Big Sur is very, very hard to top. It is 26 miles point to point, south to north along the Pacific Coast Highway. Mountains on your right, ocean on the left, the entire time. It's also the only 6 hours a year that you can be a pedestrian on the Pacific Coast Highway. So that's usually a car scenic drive. To actually run it is very special. You can't do it any other 6 hours a year except to run the Big Sur Marathon. It's also hard to get into, so it's special for that reason. And coming from Boston, it's far away. So for all those reasons, it's an absolutely unforgettable race. It's the first one I would ever do again. For something a little bit more local, I would recommend the Mount Desert Island Marathon in Bar Harbor, Maine. Is in October, very scenic. It's fall. A lot of it's along the ocean. You're right near Acadia National Park. You're not in the park, but you're right in that whole area. And it's another point-to-point race. You just see, basically, it's a tour of all of Mount Desert Island. And another very special scenic race that a little bit easier to sign up for. I recommend any marathoner in New England should do MDI at least once.
When you said that and you said October, I think Francis and I had both been discussing the prospect of maybe a fall marathon. And I think we kind of were talking about doing one together, and I just saw his eyes light up. So Mount Desert Island, you might be
seeing us.
You might be seeing us.
I know I have a half in October.
Do you know which weekend? We'll look
Not
at
off the top of
calendar.
my head.
Yeah, we'll look
Not
at the
off the top of
calendar.
my head.
I feel like you could always not run a half and run.
No, I do actually have to run this half because
Why?
I'm helping my buddy run his first half. So
He should just run his first full.
he should just run his first half twice.
Yeah, he should.
You should. Tim, if you're listening, forget your bib for the Nantucket Half Marathon. We're actually going to do a full marathon now, so we're going to adjust our training plan accordingly, and it's going to get a lot more difficult.
What do you mean adjust your training plan? Are you Coach Francis now?
I actually have 2 students.
I don't know who is out there listening to Francis.
Let me tell you, no one is paying me, so I am not responsible for any of the results that happen or anything that happens to them. I'm just a guiding hand, if you will.
So, Francis, I have to ask you, because Coach Kev is still coaching you.
Yes.
So Coach Kev's coaching you. You're coaching these people. I don't know if anyone's coaching Coach Kev, but this seems like a little bit of a Russian doll going on here, where you just got one person coaching another.
Yeah, so Coach Kev is not, he's sort of the top dog in this hierarchy, in this multi-level marketing scheme that we're cooking up.
There it is.
And so we're promising really, really high returns on our coaching for sure. But I haven't made any money from it, and I'm just doing it for the fun of it. Because I've talked to you about, dabbling in coaching, and I've been doing some reading on my own about different racing philosophies and training philosophies and that sort of thing. So yeah, we'll see how it goes.
They do say the best way to learn is by teaching someone. So,
well, I can guarantee you that all these people will PR in their first races. So that will be good for my resume.
Unless they DNF.
That's not going to happen. I'm going to drag them across the finish line.
Does that count?
No, that does count.
Okay.
That does count.
Very cool. Seth, it is super awesome hearing about your experience running Boston, your different ways of getting into the race. Loved hearing your thoughts. We ask all of our guests. I know you had some thoughts. This is a running podcast. We do talk about shoes every week. What shoes are you running in? Do you even know?
No, I have no idea. I go to Marathon Sports. They give me some advice. It goes in one ear, out the other. I'm sitting here with you right now looking at my shoes, and I don't even know what model they are. As long as they feel good and I don't have to think about them, it works for me. I know I wore Brooks Dyads for a long time. I went through many pairs in a row, but I also stopped a while ago when there was a new number came out that I didn't like. And now I'm not brand loyal. I'm not model loyal. I go in there every time. I tell them about my feet. I try stuff until it feels good, and then I go and I forget what I have.
That's honestly so refreshing. I feel like we spend a lot of time every week talking about shoes, but in reality, and we were talking about this before, I think as long as your feet feel good when you go running, you could be running in Crocs for all we care. It doesn't matter. As long as you're comfortable, if you're not thinking about what's on your feet, then the shoes are working for you, I think.
But if you are thinking about what's on your feet, we actually have a super shoe episode coming out in the next couple weeks, probably. That is the exact opposite of that, which is a deep dive into pretty much every shoe technology that's been invented since 1954. But
Seth probably won't even bother listening to that one. It'll be in one ear right at the other.
Yep.
There you go. Well, I think that might be all we have time for today, Seth. But thank you so much for coming on the pod, for sharing your knowledge with us, your experience, for sharing all about the Brighton Bangers. If anyone listening is interested in checking out the Brighton Bangers, we're going to be listing all of their information on our Instagram and in the show notes, and you should 100% head on down there, meet Seth, check it out. You might just catch Francis or I for a run there as well.
Come on down to Brighton Bangers Wednesday nights, 7 p.m. Oak Square, and Saturday mornings, 9 a.m. also from Oak Square.
Yeah, you'll probably make some really good friends. Actually, while we've been recording this podcast, a bunch of my friends from the Brighton Bangers are scheduling a movie night for tomorrow night. So, yeah,
What movie?
Sinners probably.
Sounds naughty.
It's about vampires, and it is a little naughty.
Interesting.
It is a little naughty.
Sweet. So if you are listening to the podcast, just a reminder, Francis and I are writing a newsletter every week. We release it on Monday mornings, right to your inbox. It's totally free to sign up. When you go to sign up, it says like you can agree to make a pledge in the future, but you don't have to do that. It's free. I promise you it's free. So just click no. Don't worry about it. We also have an Instagram page at the Zone 2 Podcast on Instagram. So make sure you give us a follow, tell your friends to follow. And then if you're listening to this episode and you liked what you heard, there's a 5-star review button down below. Make sure you hit that and leave a comment too. And tell your friends, like I said. Last but not least, at the beginning of today's episode, you heard us do some race shout-outs. We are super big on trying to hype people up. So if you run a race or one of your friends runs a race, you want a shout-out on the podcast or in the newsletter, that form can be found in our link tree on Instagram. So make sure you do that there, and we're happy to give you a shout-out.
Does the shout-out have to be for a race, or can you just shout out your friend for, going on a nice run one day?
I feel like we could do it for going on a nice run, but I feel like of all the people we know and all the people that listen to the podcast, if we shout out every person that went for a run this week, like Francis, shout out for your run on Tuesday. Francis, shout out for your run on Wednesday. And we did that for everyone that we knew. The entire episode would just be run shout outs.
Well, I was thinking if you see someone out on your run, it's like, oh, I saw Tony Comanzo running around.
Oh, is this one of those, I can't even remember what it's called, like missed connection things where you're like, I was on my run on Wednesday and I just saw the cutest girl on the Mass Ave bridge and I missed you, but you were wearing your Hyperions and you just looked so fast and so cool. And
you said, hi, Brian, and I didn't respond.
Don't put that on the pod. Is that what you're talking about though, Francis? Doing a little bit of a missed love connection?
We could become the matchmaking podcast as well.
We're trying to fit in too many shoes there. I think we tried to do that.
The run clubs are also like the new dating apps. Oh. So the running podcasts are the new missed connections.
I was going to say, if you need dating and running, just go to a run club. You'll do fine. 12 banger-to-banger weddings have happened.
Wow. Mm-hmm. Are you an officiant?
I did not officiate, but I did DJ some of them.
Oh, there you go. Oh, that's pretty cool. I was going to say, talking about dating and running, I did see that Lunge Run Club just made their way to Boston. I sent the Lunge Run Club people an email to see if they wanted to come on the pod just because I'm interested in it. But I feel like dating and run clubs perhaps happens enough in an informal capacity that perhaps you don't need a formal run club in order to be doing that. I don't want to put this.
These people should just focus on running, honestly.
I know.
Yeah, it's for the training. Stop dating.
Talking to each other.
Yes.
Just look ahead.
It's
running
a speed workout. Before we leave, though, Brian, do you have a fun fact for us?
Francis, I do have a fun fact. So today, Seth was kind enough to bring with him a piece of Boston Marathon history, a 100th anniversary book from 1996 that is chock full of factoids all about the history of the Boston Marathon. Today's fun fact is from the book. So today, the Boston Marathon is run in waves. Seth was talking about running in wave 4. However, this hasn't always been the case, and in the days before wave starts and electronic chip times, all 25,000 runners would start at the same time when the gun went off. However, if anyone's ever been to the start line in Hopkinton, the road's not that wide. It's only wide enough for about 50 runners to stand shoulder to shoulder. So therefore, in 1996, it was estimated that it could take the last runner a half hour just to get to the start line after the gun went off. According to the official rules at this time, these runners were allowed to subtract time from their finish time in order to account for the time it took for them to get to the starting line. And obviously now we have chips to do it for them.
Oh yeah, let me just take 2 hours off of my time, and that's a world record.
All right, Elliot. Thank you all for listening to the Zone 2 podcast. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and follow us on Instagram at the Zone 2 podcast. You can catch new episodes every Wednesday streaming anywhere you listen.